All right, I've got some great news coming out of New York. Letitia James is officially under criminal investigation. I want to go through that and some other big stories. To help me do that, I have my special guest, Sean Spicer. Sean, thank you so much for joining me again.
Always love that. Always love our time together. Thank you for having me again.
Oh, I do too. Thank you again for coming on. So, Sean Spicer is the host of the Sean Spicer Show. He's also the former White House press secretary for President Donald J. Trump in the first term. Did a fantastic job. A lot of pressure there. I'm just reading this morning on the New York Post. Kash Patel and the FBI have officially opened a criminal investigation against New York Attorney General Letitia James for mortgage fraud, falsifying real estate records, falsifying documents to procure better lending terms, and more to avoid the appearance of political revenge. FBI Director Kash Patel is having the Albany FBI office do the investigation. What are your thoughts on this? I've been covering this story. I've been waiting for her. I know Trump has stayed out of it, other than calling her a stupid, evil woman. But what are your thoughts? They're finally going to go after this criminal record stuff.
You know, Stephen, in D.C., one of the lessons you learn early on as a staffer is be very careful who you go after, because the intern of today could be your boss of tomorrow. And I say that in light of this, where, you know, Letitia James, I thought, got on her high horse, went after Donald Trump for, no pun intended, a trumped up charge, right? I mean, regardless of who you are or how much you hate Donald Trump, that was a clear weaponization of the legal system. Creating a charge out of nowhere, materializing false sense of statute limitations that by any stretch of the imagination had expired. And we all knew it. I mean, like, again, the idea of just to remind, and I know you talk about it all the time, but I mean, just think about this. He falsified business records to himself that there was no victim of, that he wrote a check for to his lawyer. I mean, like, it on its face, it was so ridiculous. Okay, so let's just clear that up. But now we actually have, and it's even more than you described. You have more information than I do, so I don't know what exactly they're charging her with or investigating. But remember, Letitia James, an elected official in New York, was also apparently under this mortgage scheme, claiming Virginia as her home. Now, I'm not an expert on election law in every state, but I have a feeling that if you want to be the attorney general in New York, it's hard to claim that your homestead is Virginia. And frankly, I normally welcome people here to my state of Virginia, but in that case, I'll take a hard pass. But look, she, according to what you just said, like, she falsified mortgage documents. She probably falsified tax documents too, because again, she was claiming another state for a tax deduction when we clearly know. It's hard to say. You know, I know my mom lives in Florida part of the year, and everybody down there counts days. It's like, how many days are you in one state so that you can claim your residency versus another state. Mm-hmm. But when you're the attorney general of New York, it's probably a given that you're supposed to be a resident of New York. So I have a feeling that she is going to regret going after Donald Trump, because she opened herself up to this inquiry, to people looking at her. And I don't have any ounce of sorrow for her. I hope they throw the book at her, because they thought they were so high and mighty on this lawfare. Like, we're going to outdo each other. Everybody wanted to. You had Alvin Bragg and Letitia James and Fani Willis, everybody trying to be who could be tougher on Donald Trump. And it's finally showing. It happened with Fani Willis with her boyfriend, Wade. You know, Bragg has got his own issues in terms of what's going on in New York City. But I love these guys who thought they were so, like, they didn't think about the future. And that's why I was saying with the intern comment, like, people are so short-sighted sometimes. They don't think, hey, what's going to happen in a year or two or three? I don't think they ever predicted that he'd be back or that they would dig into their thing. So whether it's Fani Willis or Alvin Bragg or Letitia James, I think all of these people that have opened themselves up. It is fair game. Look at their past. Look at whether or not they abided by all the laws. And if they haven't, let's go hardcore at them.
Yeah. So Alan Dershowitz, the lawyer that represented Trump in the first impeachment, he said on my show, one of the major differences is like Trump sits at the top of as a CEO of the Trump Corporation, right? and then you have lower level accountants that are handling everything. There's a lot of separation between Trump and a lower level accountant. With her, it's her own signature on all of the documents. The other difference that's worthy of pointing out is this isn't Donald Trump that went after her. It's not even Kash Patel. It's Sam Antar. And he used to be, I believe, the CFO of Crazy Eddie. They ended up doing like all of this fraud. He was then hired by the government because he was a criminal that understood the mind and the workings and the way that criminals cheat. And so he's been the one going after her, collecting everything, sending in private investigators. And then all they did was hand over all the evidence to the FBI. But I think Kash Patel was smart to go, okay, listen, we're going to hand this over to the Albany, New York office. We're going to stay at a distance. Trump's not involved. This is literally, we have all the documents of how you lied. It's all laid out there. Now, her attorney, Abe Lowell, he's saying, well, if there is an error, it was a mistake. It was not on purpose. You can't sign mortgage documents without knowing that you don't live in Virginia. If you know you live in New York, like that's just a lie. That's why it's called fraud.
Yeah.
So I don't know. What do you think? Were they smart to have the Albany office researching this?
Yeah, a couple things that come to mind. Number one, when you were talking about Alan Dershowitz, he comes on my show from time to time. I don't know about you, but I always feel smarter when I have Alan Dershowitz come on the show. Like I love his ability to take complex legal issues and break them down into such someone like me understands it, right? I watch like Law and Order, and that's my legal background. But I love the fact that you had him on to explain this because but anyway, I will say this. I think it's brilliant what you were just saying, because the difference is Trump was like, at the end of the day, as I explain this, like, right. So he pays his lawyer, a guy named Michael Cohen, who's a lawyer, a legal fee. Michael Cohen takes that legal fee and then does whatever. So again, Trump puts it in his book as a legal fee because he paid his lawyer, right? Okay. You could argue that, then the lawyer did X. But first of all, again, it's an internal bookkeeping exercise. The only people who look at that is that, it's like, did you put it in a, if you and I worked for the same company and we went out to lunch, who expenses it? Which column does it go into? But at the end of the day, it's still an expense to our company, right? So it doesn't really matter whether Sean Spicer bought lunch or Stephen Gardner paid for lunch. It's an internal bookkeeping issue. And that's what Trump was guilty of, apparently. But to your point, what's brilliant about this is that there is no gosh, I didn't realize that Virginia was another state when I said that that's where I live and I was the New York Attorney General. I just didn't realize that these states weren't connected. And I mean, it doesn't, right? So to your point, her signature is on. She's lying about what state she's in. And the thing that also comes to mind and is something that I continue to find fascinating in the world, right? When you're Letitia James and you are running for Attorney General and you're refinancing your mortgage and saying that your homestead is Virginia, how do you not think that's going to come up? Okay. And then secondly, when you go after Donald Trump for bookkeeping stuff, how do you not think the arrogance that some people have? That still amazes me sometimes when, there are people who go up for confirmation in front of the Senate and they've lied about their past or a degree that they had or something like that. And I'm always like, how do you guys not think that's not going to come up? Like, these guys have investigators, like they have federal agents that's what they do. And so for Letitia James to not think that this was ever going to happen is to me almost makes me rethink how dumb I really think she is. But to your other point, I think that Kash Patel and others are brilliant in that they actually can. This is the opposite, right? Letitia James didn't see the hand in front of her face to say, dumb idea, flashing red. Kash Patel, on the other hand, saw flashing yellow, okay, if we're going to go down this path, let's be bulletproof. Let's make sure we do it by the book. Let's make sure that we use the right people and it goes through the right process so that nobody can claim that we politicized or weaponized the judicial system the way that it happened. So I think it shows you the difference in the approach. But I also go back to a constant theme that I have been hitting on in my show every night, which is this second term of Trump is I think unbelievably consequential because, and I this is just a passion of mine to really try to break through that, like a normal sequential second term, same people, same policies, you just keep the train moving down the track. Okay. So I have a chief of staff. I got the same, January 20th, second term. I keep that chief of staff. I keep pushing the tax policy or whatever they're pushing. When these guys had 4 years out of office, they really had an opportunity to think about how to do things better and correctly. You almost had a chance, if you read some of the documents, that whether it's the Heritage Foundation or America First Policy or Stephen Miller's organization, America First Legal, they were wargaming things. And I don't know that this is one of them, but it's emblematic of the point that I'm making, which is that Kash Patel didn't do the reflexive, like, let's go get her. He thought, this is going to be seen as this. So what do I need to do to make sure that we do it right, that we're bulletproof? And that to me is, again, no one stops and pauses and thinks about that. But a normal FBI would have just been like, oh, let's go. These guys are so much more strategic in their thinking and their actions because they've had the opportunity to say, if we get back into power, how do we do things smarter? How do we war game these things so we think about who the forces that are coming at us so that they don't get knocked down in the way that I think there was a lot of issues in the first term, mostly because President Trump was new and had a disloyal team in many cases around him. So I love this. I'm so excited that you're sharing this with me now and we're talking about the process because I think people sometimes keep banking these wins that President Trump has. And this isn't necessarily a win, but it is in a way because it gets back at these people. So I'm excited about it.
Yeah, it's a win for people like me that covered it and were like, wait a minute, this is wrong. Like, I wouldn't want to be put through hell. My company, try to strip that, try to break up my marriage, try to humiliate my children. So, but Trump didn't run on revenge of Letitia James, but Letitia James did run on getting Trump. And so she is now going to get a dose of her own medicine. Okay, I want to talk to you about
just one last thing. I'm so excited though, Stephen. I will say this. I want to hear her at some point soon because you put your finger on this and it's brilliant. And how does she, I mean, this is like when you play a game of Clue and you're like, it's Professor Plum with the candlestick in the study. When someone goes to her, it's your name on the document, your signature, you say you're in Virginia. How do you say that wasn't me? I didn't do it. I was high as a kite. I don't know. What's your defense? Because to me, I have a hard time thinking ahead. How do you defend that?
Yeah.
Losing weight can feel like an uphill battle, especially with the American diet. From nasty seed oils that hurt us to high fructose corn syrup that makes us even more hungry. Americans have wrecked their gut health. That's where Thermotrim steps in as a smart, science-backed solution. This USA-made fat burner starts by restoring your gut health. Thermotrim has a gut bacteria found in thinner people, but not heavier Americans. Thermotrim helps restore that so you can lose weight. It supports digestion and curbs cravings naturally. Have you tried other products to lose weight and change your gut health? I know I have. For me, Thermotrim is what my body needed. Get Thermotrim to improve your gut health and start losing weight today. Visit redlineremedies.com or snap the QR code. Make sure to use code Gardner to get an additional 20% off. We all feel better when we lose weight, and I want you to live a long and happy life.
Well, I'll tell you, I want to talk about Jamie Raskins and some of the stupid stuff he's saying. I also want to talk about some of the dumb stuff, Chuck Schumer, but I don't want to hit this point too hard, but think about this. So we know that New York changed the law in a few ways to get Trump with E Jean Carroll and with the 34 bogus felony charges for an accounting error. Well, I was reading this morning that New York lawmakers quietly slipped a new provision into a recent bill that would protect state employees with up to $10 million in legal coverage if they were sued. And wouldn't you know it, Letitia James says she's going to take advantage of this taxpayer-funded slush fund in order to fight Trump and his revenge lawsuit. She's about to milk the American taxpayer. Mm-hmm. This is such a personal thing that she's now trying to turn into a state thing. She didn't sign those mortgage documents as the attorney general. She signed them as Letitia James, the person. I just think it's such dishonesty.
I mean, look, this again, I'm sorry. I can't believe I know that Mike Lawler, the congressman from New York, or at least Stefanik may run for governor. They cannot screw this up enough. I mean, if the people of New York don't say that's insane, then at some point that's on them. But I'm telling you, I cannot believe I mean, that gets back to the point that I was making before, the gumption, the arrogance that you think that no one's going to notice this. And I get to your point, you can slip these things in some bill in Albany, but once the New York citizenry, once the American people see this, they just don't know how to not push the envelope too far. And this, in my opinion, is just one more example.
I think the people of New York will turn on her just like they did Andrew Cuomo. They defended him until they couldn't anymore, and then they all turned on him. That's exactly. Yeah.
You remember he got punch drunk with all of his power at COVID. So I'm excited because these guys, and it was the same thing with immigration. They started off with like, oh, we're just being kind and helpful to these people, seeking asylum that are in a tough place. And then they open the borders. We all see it. They gaslight it. They went too far. Trump runs against them, and boom, we win. And this is just, they don't know when to say when to stop. I don't know about you, Stephen, but I remember when I actually, I'm in my 50s and she still says it to me. But my mom sometimes, or even my wife now, like I'll be arguing or whatever, and I'll make a point, and then I'll quote, take it too far. Right. Sometimes I just don't know when to take a win or end the argument. And I feel like a lot of these Democratic leaders, and obviously New York at the forefront of this, don't know when to stop, because this level of arrogance, I can tell you this right now. If I were Letitia James, do not tap into this fund. Do not do this, because you will then make it even worse for yourself.
Yeah. I think that's really great advice that we know she's not going to take. Okay, let me, this is crazy. So on CNN with Pamela Brown.
Hey, hold on. By the way, anytime you start a sentence with on CNN, to me, is when we have a problem.
I know that it gets worse. It gets worse. So, okay, on CNN, Pamela Brown, Congressman Jamie Raskin says, Trump sees the Constitution as an inconvenient furniture that's got to be kicked out of the way. He then criticized the Trump administration for the way that they're behaving, that they are against the Constitution. What are your thoughts? I don't see it. Trump is not kicking the Constitution around like it's an inconvenient, poorly placed piece of furniture in the Oval Office. Your thoughts on Jamie Raskin?
I can't. The Dems keep using words like constitutional crisis, and what infuriates me when they go on, whether it's CNN or MSNBC, no one's ever asked them explain to me what you're talking about, because they throw these words around like we're in a constitutional crisis. What is that? The other day on the BBC interview, Joe Biden was asked about democracy. I played this on my show yesterday, and he said. They said, what do you think? And he said, it's under attack. Look at these European leaders. And I thought, well, hold on, stop. You just got asked about the state of democracy. And your response was, look at the leaders in Europe. What does that have to, I mean, that's like, what's the weather out tonight? And I go, peanut butter. Like, what is that? I don't understand. And so when Jamie Raskin and others, Jasmine Crockett and the rest of these numbnuts, get asked a question, like the CNN loves that the clickbait that comes with it. But there's never a question of explain to me what you want. Tell me one piece of the Constitution that Trump's not following. Name one. I mean, he got asked the other day about the Supreme Court. He said, of course, the court rules, we'll follow it. That's what we do. But they don't like the answer. And the second thing, and I know the left likes to call this whataboutism, but I just call it like the truth, is when Joe Biden didn't follow the Supreme Court with respect to student loans, when the court told him what he was doing was unconstitutional, his reply was, fine, we'll find a workaround. So I just, when you call it the oath that he took was to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States, and then he literally let millions of people in through our southern border with unfettered access. So why they suddenly have a deep concern for the Constitution. When Joe Biden tried to take away our Second Amendment rights, they didn't talk about a constitutional crisis. When he censored us and smothered us about speaking out about COVID, they didn't talk about a constitutional crisis. These guys are all about words, just throwing out phrases. And this is the thing, that all they do is come up with a poll-tested phrase, and guarantee you, mark my words, Stephen, the budget fight is about to come out. Okay. And they are going to do the same thing. There's going to talk about draconian cuts, taking a sledgehammer to the federal budget. Nothing could be further from the truth. But they poll test something that instills some sort of fear or emotion from people. And then they just use it without consequence because nobody calls them on it.
Yeah, well, I'll give you a good example I just read this morning. So the Democrats are like, Kash Patel is the worst FBI director we've ever had, but don't cut his budget by $500 million. That would look bad to the world and to the country and to the criminals. So it's like they don't want to get rid of the money from the FBI, but also he's the worst.
But also the thing, this gets back to it. The worst. Okay, what has he done? Name one thing. I mean, in fact, you and I just talked about one of the things that he's done with respect to Letitia James, and it's by anything, it's going above and beyond a degree of caution and professionalism to ensure that there's no question about political retribution, et cetera. So my only point would be, they get away with this stuff using these phrases, and it's never true, by the way. And you see it with tariffs and trade. They throw these phrases out about the world being under attack and instability or whatever else, and no one ever says, "Okay, explain what you mean by that." Right? So we did this with all of this Doge stuff. There was a massive amount of waste, fraud, abuse, inefficiencies, duplicity, whatever, and they'd say they're slashing the government. Well, okay, well, what about this? Or the Maryland Man hoax. Okay, I mean, think about this. This is a guy who, the more we learn, the more it gets worse in terms of what he did to his wife, the other actions that he's taken. I mean, and yet no one says to them, hey, here's a guy who did the following bad things, who in Article 2 court ordered to be deported, and this is who you're fighting for. But because, well, it doesn't play into the narrative. So again, I think one of the things that I continue to be excited about is the advent of independent media, your show, my show, and the acceptance of it. You look at what's going on in the White House. I was there last week with Caroline. These guys are welcoming in independent media, embracing influencers. I love this, what she's doing and what they're doing as a whole. And I think that's what I think is keeping the country alive, if you will, right? Because people are basically saying, I've had enough of the lies of CBS and the New York Times. It is a mind-blowing the way it gets out. And even when it comes down to, I was telling a story the other day, I put a tweet out about something. Like I said, this is like a made up thing, but I said, I'm going on Stephen Gardner today at 2:00, looking forward. And this guy, Paul Farhi, who used to be one of the fact checkers, media reporters for the Washington Post, he's since retired, quote tweets and says, fact check. You will be going on several shows that day. Or like, and I was like he tweeted, quote tweeted whatever tweet I put out. I said something about how, I know what it was. I said, the White House, I've been really impressed with how the White House has opened access to the White House. And he fact checked me and said, they, however, have taken control of the pool. And I was like, the White House press pool. And I was like, That's not a fact check. I mean, if I wasn't talking about the White House press pool. Their view is we're calling that a fact check. Well, that had nothing to do with what I was talking about, but because it's them, that's how they insert themselves into stories and words and verbiage and narratives in a way that's just so corrupt.
Yeah. Well, they're taking over the press pool by letting Tim Pool come and ask a question. I can tell you why Director Kash Patel is the worst FBI director in their eyes. He's arresting their future voters.
Yeah. By the way, so Stephen, I love you that you just brought that up. For the longest time, I have maintained that the reason the Democrats support open borders is because it's part of their long-term plan to get their voters, right? They want, you get them in, then you give them a green card, then you get them voters. Okay. And it was probably 2 weeks ago where there was an analysis done that opened my eyes in a way that I was like, oh my God. Sometimes like I think I get sometimes I always think that what Democrats do is very different than why they say they're doing it. So for example, they don't want DC to have voting rights. They just want 2 additional senators, right? So it's never about what they really tell you. So I try to smoke out the intention. And I always thought that I had that one right, that this was just about more voters. And then there's this analysis that came out that said, remember, the census of the United States counts bodies, not citizens. And if you look at where the illegal aliens are residing right now, they estimate that there's about a 10-seat Democrat pickup in the House of Representatives, because when they determine congressional borders, it's again, bodies, not citizens. So if you can put those people in key blue areas, winner, winner, chicken dinner. So we are losing about a 10-seat majority right now in the House that we would additionally have if it wasn't for the illegals that are residing in blue districts. And now I think 2 things would be true one time, right? So they could also be hoping that they're going to be future voters. But in the short term, it's helping them get a majority in the House.
Yeah, well, good analysis. All right, I don't want to keep talking about Jamie Raskin. I think he has weird hair and he's not a great person, but he essentially said that Democrat voters were attacking Elon Musk and Tesla dealerships because President Trump unleashed civil disobedience on the country. Now, this might be one of the better examples of gaslighting that I've seen in a long time. So we have to attack Musk and Tesla dealerships with literal firebombs because Trump promotes civil disobedience. Help me make sense of anything he just said.
It's amazing to me. These guys always have an excuse for their violence. You remember Maxine Waters saying, surround members of the Trump administration. Senator Schumer telling him, let's go get Gorsuch. There's no evidence that Trump supports civil disobedience at all. In fact, I would argue, having been around the guy, that he's threatened to send in the National Guard and other law enforcement officials when things kind of break out. He's been clear on the cases of these university campuses that we're going to stamp them out. So I actually think quite the opposite is true. It's almost like an excuse for them. But I had this revelation the other day. I was in the green room of a News Nation where I am a contributor. And I was like, when I got in this game, Democrats and Republicans had serious policy differences. I believe in lower taxes and a smaller government, less government spending. Those were I'm pro-life socially and a lot of other social things. So, and Democrats are pro-abortion and pro-big government, whatever. And those were the big divide lines between the two sides. And then I realized we have shifted tremendously to a point now where you have one party that supports illegals, criminals, open borders, civil disobedience, violence, destruction. I mean, think about it. During the George Floyd riots, people actually died. There was tremendous amounts of vandalism and destruction. And no one said a word because it was okay, because it was excused. It was, for the right reasons, as they like to say. But that's where we are now. the Democratic Party used to, have be for liberal policy, socially and fiscally. But now they are the party of the people who break the law. They are a party for criminals.
Yeah, totally agree. Okay, final question here. So Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer said this week, Donald Trump's days of pretending to be a populist are over. His policies are nothing short of an all-out assault on hardworking Americans as he guts health care, slashes education, hollows out programs families rely on. He's bankrolling tax breaks for billionaires and big corporation. So Democrats are basically gaslighting their voters that have Trump derangement syndrome, that Trump is helping Wall Street and banks and his billionaire buddies. Wall Street's complaining, you're actually doing too much for the middle class, and Main Street, you need to focus more on Wall Street. And MAGA is saying you need to arrest more people. What do you think of all these people's different opinions? What do you think of Chuck Schumer saying this guy is gutting the middle class?
Part of me wonders if they just don't have anything left to say, right? So it's just like, this is all we have. I think the election proved Schumer completely wrong. If you look at the coalition that elected Donald Trump, it's demonstrably not true. And in some ways, I hope they keep believing this, because I hope that they are so misguided on their open border policies, on their tax policies. I mean, look, Trump, no one buys that. And I think one of the things that people realize is they see the actions. And that's the big difference between this administration and the past, not just the actions and the results, but you see it every day. These cabinet secretaries, Pete Hegseth, Sean Duffy, Lee Zeldin, Doug Collins, Brooke Rollins, Scott Besson, Howard Lutnick. You know all the names of the cabinet because they're out there doing things, and it's everything, right? Donald Trump the other day got rid of paper straws. He got rid of the water stupid thing in shower heads. I spend a lot of time in New England, and I grew up there, and windmills were really wreaking havoc in the fishing community because they were hurting. Actually, it was bad for the environment. He went and put a pause on that. He's doing things that actually are very tangible to working men and women, and they see it, and they see what he's doing with tariffs, fighting for American jobs, fighting for onshoring businesses, and especially this coming weekend, if they, as I predict, will get substantial progress made with the Chinese, his team over there in Switzerland, I think that people are going to start to go, oh gosh, we don't know what to, because he keeps chalking up wins. So they always underestimate him. They don't like him because Donald Trump doesn't govern like you're supposed to. He's not, it's not, this is how it always is. This is how we did it last time. He does it his way and he gets results. I think at some point, they've run out of old tricks, right? They've tried everything in the past. I don't think people buy it as much. And part of it is because of new media, as far as I'm concerned, because you can connect with people in a way that you didn't. And President Trump and his team are putting out more and more tools to have conversations and communicate with the American people. But look, I think that Chuck Schumer, the other day, it was funny. He was doing something, and his response was, he said, I am going to send a letter. And I was just like, yes, welcome 1974. Like, he's so out of touch. And I think he's clinging to power. And so the idea is, I'll just keep saying that Donald Trump did this or that. But look, the beauty of this president is that you see from him every single day, multiple times, and he tells you exactly what he's doing. And if you don't see him, he's truthing it. And so Schumer can say what he wants, but when you start to gaslight people the way that he is and the way that the left wing media is, you run out of what credibility you had left real quick. I actually think they're making a massively tactical mistake. Like, they should embrace some of these things, frankly, that they've been behind for decades. Like, they should embrace tariffs and should embrace some of his policy and say, you know what, I agree with the president. And then maybe say, but I don't like the style or the process, and say, but because maybe you could pick it up on that. But the bottom line is most of these policies, in a lot of cases, they advocated in the past for. It's obvious they don't like him just because it's him.
Yeah. My favorite clip from last week was Chuck Schumer ranting about Donald Trump's 100-day polls are the worst of any president in 100 years. He's hurting the middle class. And then a reporter's like, hey, you have the lowest approval rating according to polling. And polls come and go. Polls are useless.
Lowest 100-day approval rating since they started polling 80 years ago. The lowest. Yes.
There's a poll out today that has your approval rating lower than any other congressional leader at 17%. Are you concerned that you may be a liability for your party?
Polls come and go. Our party is united.
I agree with you. That was one of my favorite. His poll numbers, and then when that reporter said, "Sir, your poll numbers," he goes, "What polls go up and down?"
Yeah, the polls come and go. We're fighting Trump. So. Well, Sean, always a delight to have you on the show. Your channel continues to grow. You've got great guests. Sometimes I'm jealous of the guests you get, so send them over my way. But
any day, anytime.
If people want to follow you, where's some links that I can push them towards?
SeanSpicer.com has everything. I have a great newsletter there that's free. Comes out twice a week on a lot of the things that you and I spoke about. And then obviously the show is on YouTube every night at 6. I do have a Rumble account. If people don't like YouTube, you can go to Spotify and Apple as well, but YouTube's really where it's at. So if you can just follow us at YouTube, we do a live show, by the way, every morning at 9 called The Morning Meeting that I just love and take questions from folks. So if you go to SeanSpicer.com and hit the notification button, Sean M. Spicer on YouTube, you can sign up for all of that at one place. And then SeanSpicer.com has links to everything plus the newsletter.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for taking time out of your day. I know how valuable it is.
Always
I'll put those links down below, as I promised. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Stephen.